It is Monday, August 10th, 2026, and this is The High Road. I'm Dan Miller, and I'm the guy keeping the scoreboard in this market.
This is Jules Sterling.
I'm Buck Reynolds.
And I'm Elena Rossi. We have a great show for you today.
Yesterday, we covered shift from truckload to intermodal, Black Sea maritime crisis, an EIA petroleum status report, and diesel prices.
It's a busy docket today, Dan, especially with these Section 338 tariffs looming like a hammer over the Canadian crossing.
And don't forget the fuel pump. The numbers there are enough to give any fleet manager a case of the shingles.
Well, okay. Before we get to the tariff wall, Elena, I know you've been watching the East China Sea pretty closely today.
Actually, I have, because Typhoon Dolphin just made landfall in Zhejiang, and it is a textbook case of why complacency is the precursor to catastrophe, specifically for port operations in Ningbo and Shanghai.
Right. And when a port like Ningbo stutters, the retail calendars for my accounts they basically just melt.
Look, the bottom line is this storm is expected to linger through the 12th, according to reports from ICIS. And if you're a shipper with cargo in that hub, you're sitting on a liability powder keg right now.
It isn't just the wind, Dan. It's the lack of automated, resilient scheduling that's the real risk. We're seeing it elsewhere, too. Look at the port of Tallinn today.
What's going on in Estonia? That's a long way from Ningbo.
They just dropped their Q2 results, a 59% plunge in net profit, despite revenue actually going up by 5%.
Wait, profit down 60%? That's brutal for an infrastructure play. How does that happen?
Operations room and climate repairs, Jules. They got hit with extraordinary winter costs. It shows that maintaining traditional infrastructure without a massive risk mitigation budget is a drain on capital.
It's the hidden cost of the status quo. Here's the play. You can either pay for the innovation now, or you can pay the weather god later at a 60% premium.
The thing is, we're seeing all this climate disruption right when the National Retail Federation is saying import volumes are staying high through the end of the month.
Exactly, Buck. The Global Port Tracker says we're still peaking in August, so any storm-related backlog in China is going to ripple through the West Coast just in time for the Q4 crunch.
And if your carrier doesn't have a plan for those ripples, well, you're just hoping for the best, which is not a strategy.
Now it's time for Diesel Dispatch, our Monday segment where we look at the numbers hitting the tanks across the nation.
And look, it's August 10, and the board is looking pretty red for anyone trying to budget their fuel spend this week.
You weren't kidding. The national retail average for on-highway diesel hit $5.38 per gallon this week, according to the EIA. And that's a 3.5-cent jump since last Monday.
That's the fourth consecutive week of increases, right?
It is, and the macro driver is a total mess. Basically, a refining mismatch. We're seeing crude prices actually soften a bit on WTI, but the retail pump is sticky because the Saudi crude shipments have effectively stopped.
Saudi shipments to the U.S. just stopped?
Effectively, yes. They've halted exports to U.S. terminals, and that heavy, sour grade they send is what our Gulf Coast refiners were built to handle.
The thing is, when you can't get the right raw material, the crack spread, that's the refiner's margin, starts doing crazy things. It's sitting near $70 a barrel.
So we have a product shortage, even if there's enough crude floating around globally?
Exactly. It's like having a stadium full of people, but only one turnstile open. The price to get through increases, regardless of how many people are outside.
My thing is, the Energy Secretary is trying to bail us out with Jones Act waivers, letting non-U.S. flagged ships move product between our own ports to keep the Northeast from running dry.
That's a Band-Aid, Buck. It doesn't fix the fact that Saudi exports are being weaponized, or that the Strait of Hormuz is basically a powder keg right now.
Is that why the West Coast is seeing $6.13 a gallon?
Right. It's a conflict premium. If those negotiations in the Middle East fail, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is going to have a very hard time keeping diesel under $6 nationally by Labor Day.
Look, 535 is already a survival metric for the guys in my fleet. We're seeing owner-operators park their trucks because the surcharge isn't keeping up with the volatility.
And that's Diesel Dispatch. That's a wrap for this Monday.
Speaking of survival metrics, Dan, we need to talk about this tariff wall on the northern border because August 19 is coming fast.
Look, the USMCA has officially become what I'm calling a zombie agreement. The U.S. refused the extension back in July, so now we're in this annual review cycle that's poisoning investment.
I mean, we've gone from a steady trade deal to a game of are we still friends this year? It's a mess for anyone trying to buy equipment.
It's worse than a mess. The Trump administration is invoking Section 338 of the Tariff Act of 1930. That's a century-old statute, folks, to slap a 50% duty on Canadian goods starting next week.
50%? That's not a tariff. That's an embargo by another name.
It's specifically targeting motor vehicles, alcohol, and dairy. We're talking about $20 billion in annual imports that could effectively be priced out of the market overnight.
Actually, Canada's Trade Minister, Dominic LeBlanc, is in D.C. right now trying to bargain. They're talking about giving up provincial booze bans and sharing toll revenue from the new Gordie Howe Bridge.
They're selling the tolls to save the trucks? That's high-stakes poker right there.
Look, it's a midnight clock. Maybe you have a fleet of Canadian-built units, or maybe you move auto parts. Either way, your bill increases by 50% the second the clock strikes 12 on the 19th.
I mean, my accounts are already fully booked. If these tariffs hit, the scramble to clear customs before the deadline is going to create absolute gridlock at the Windsor crossing.
And let's not forget, these tariffs apply even if the goods are USMCA compliant. It bypasses all the duty-free protections we thought were set in stone.
It's the midnight clock effect. We saw it with the wooden goods surtax last week, and now it's the whole auto sector getting the squeeze.
Which is exactly why you can't rely on historical trade patterns anymore. You need a contingency for a wall being built while your trucks are already in transit.
It makes me glad I'm not hauling cross-border anymore. That's a lot of paperwork to end up stuck in a parking lot.
Well, okay, shifting gears to something a bit more, optimistic. Daimler Truck North America just announced a massive U.S. expansion.
Optimistic, Jules? Or just another liability to manage? They're building a brand new greenfield facility, their largest in the world.
Right, but look at the technology. It's focused on zero-emission vehicles and these new Gen 6 Detroit engines. It's a huge bet on the future of North American manufacturing.
Look, Daimler isn't stupid. They see the trade walls being built, so they're doubling down on domestic production to dodge the very tariffs we were just talking about.
I mean, I'm all for new plants, but this whole powertrain pivot, I still don't trust a silicon driver to tell me when a wheel bearing is failing, Jules.
It's not just about silicon, Buck. It's about meeting the emissions standards for 2027 without having to rely on 5 different engine architectures.
Actually, the risk profile here is fascinating. By building a new smart plant, they're trying to automate the quality control that used to be the main source of indemnity claims in new trucks.
It's a chess move. By the time that plant opens in 2029, they'll have the capacity to swamp the market with units that already meet the 2030 regulations.
And for my retail clients, that reliability is everything. They want to know the fleet they lease isn't going to be grounded by a software glitch or a regulatory fine.
Well, we'll see if they can build them as tough as the old ones. I've seen a lot of smart trucks get outsmarted by a Wyoming blizzard.
Hey, before we move on to our main story, a quick note from our sponsor. Strategic logistics requires world-class engineering. This show is powered by the stack developed by Eric Christensen at Neural Network Media. Support the architect behind the code. Visit our Patreon at patreon.com/neural network media for a free trial and access to our daily briefing PDF.
All right, we need to talk about the absolute explosion in cargo theft because $304 million in losses is not a typo.
Look, that's from Veris CargoNet's Q2 report, and it's more than double what we saw in the same period last year. It's not just smash and grab anymore.
My thing is, we're seeing the total collapse of the traditional liability shield. The thieves are using AI-driven identity theft and business email compromise to basically just walk away with the keys.
It's terrifying. One of my accounts almost lost a $200,000 load of electronics because a thief spoofed the carrier's dispatcher email.
The thing is, when I was behind the wheel, if someone was messing with your trailer, you knew it. Now, the thief is in a cubicle halfway across the country, just redirecting the GPS dot.
And the insurers are done playing games. They're mandating multi-factor authentication for every load. And if you don't have it, your claim is getting denied before it's even filed.
It's strategic theft. They're targeting high-value, high-liquidity goods like copper, pharmaceuticals, and designer apparel.
Right. And they know exactly where the security gaps are in the middle market brokerages.
Actually, I've seen reports of thieves using deep fake audio to call drivers and divert them to unauthorized warehouses. If you don't have a verified chain of custody, you're essentially uninsured.
I mean, I tell my guys to stick to the old ways. Verify everything by phone. Check the ID at the gate. And never trust a change of destination that wasn't approved by the office.
Look, the bottom line is that cargo theft has become a tech industry of its own. It's not a crime of opportunity. It's a business model with its own R&D budget.
Exactly. And if you're a fleet manager not hardening your digital perimeter, you're basically leaving the keys in the ignition and the door wide open.
It's that human element again, you know? The technology creates the hole, and only human vigilance can actually plug it.
Or as Elena says, complacency is the precursor to catastrophe. It's the motto of the year.
It really is. We're seeing it in the port disruptions, the tariff deadlines, and now in the theft data. The era of set it and forget it logistics is officially over.
Well, it keeps us busy, I suppose. Just wish it didn't cost so much at the pump while we were at it.
Look, the market is a game of leverage. And right now, the leverage is all on the side of the people who can adapt the fastest.
And that's why we're in this room every day, right? To figure out which way the wind is blowing before it knocks the cargo over.
Precisely. You see, the risk isn't just in the event itself, but in how long it takes you to react to the new reality.
And the reality today is that a storm in China, a tariff in Canada, and a hacker in a basement are all hitting your bottom line at the exact same time.
I'm just glad I don't have to deal with the logbooks for all that. I'll stick to the rose garden for my stress relief.
Look, we'll keep tracking it. That's what the operations room's for.
And we'll keep the risk managers honest, hopefully.
Well, we'll see if those tariffs actually stick on the 19th. I have a feeling the negotiations aren't over yet.
That's a wrap for today's High Road. We covered the 3 T's: typhoons, tariffs, and theft. Watch your lanes and watch your logins, folks.
Bye.
See ya.
Peace.
Keep it between the lines and off the ledger.